Earlier this year, a scientific paper was published that has completely challenged the way we think about how oxygen is produced on Earth. Prior to this, scientists believed that oxygen was produced solely through photosynthesis, a process requiring sunlight. However, the discovery in the Pacific Ocean by a team led by Dr. Andrew Sweetman, who heads the Seafloor Ecology and Biogeochemistry research group at the Scottish Association for Marine Science, has upended this understanding. They found that oxygen is being produced at the ocean floor in complete darkness, more than 4,000 metres below the surface. Not only has this discovery challenged what we know about oxygen, it could also potentially impact efforts by some Pacific countries to exploit deep-sea mining for economic benefit. Here's Dr. Sweetman explaining just how the discovery came about.
Yeah, it started about 11 years ago. We were out in the Pacific Ocean. We're trying to measure seafloor respiration, and we couldn't. Every time we would put down our instruments, they would show that the oxygen was going up as opposed to going down. And for about 10 years, we thought that our instruments just weren't working. And eventually we came to the conclusion that they must be working. And what we were seeing at the seafloor was actually a real process going on. It was significant for a number of reasons. I mean, when I was in high school and university, I was taught that the production of oxygen was only possible through photosynthesis. And where we were working in the Pacific Ocean, the depth there is around 4,500 meters deep, so sunlight doesn't penetrate that deep, and yet we were seeing oxygen increase. So it seems to be that there's a particular type of process. We're still trying to figure out what's driving the process, what's causing it, but something down there is capable of generating oxygen without the need for sunlight.
Dr. Sweetman made his discovery while exploring the Clarion-Clipperton zone between Hawaii and Mexico, which is being targeted for deep-sea mining. Licenses have already been issued for countries to start mining in the zone from 2026. At the heart of the issue are polymetallic nodules, rich in metals like cobalt, lithium, and nickel, which are essential for green technologies. These metals can be used for batteries, electric vehicles, wind turbines, electrical wiring, and the like. However, it appears that they may also play a critical role in producing oxygen on the ocean floor, oxygen that supports unique marine ecosystems.
Certain areas of the ocean are covered in these polymetallic nodules. In some places there's no polymetallic nodules, but there's the manganese oxides or the metal oxide deposits as like granules within the sediments. It's just a hypothesis that we have, but what we think may be going on is that within the manganese nodules or potentially metal oxide deposits in the sediments, what you have is there are certain metals within these manganese oxides that have a higher electrical charge than others. And if you have different electrical charges within a deposit and there's a channel for electrons to flow, and there are channels for electrons to flow in these manganese oxide deposits. They're layered structures, so electrons can flow in between the layers. If you have seawater, which is an electrolyte, and you have electrons flowing, there's enough charge being created. You can potentially split water into oxygen and hydrogen via a process called electrolysis. So we think that this may partly be to blame for the oxygen production that we're seeing. But as I said, it is only a hypothesis. We need to actually explore it in greater detail in follow-on investigations.
The dilemma is that these nodules, there are thought to be trillions on the ocean floor. While they could generate significant revenue for Pacific nations, mining them could also threaten to disrupt sensitive ecosystems in a newly discovered process that produces oxygen in total darkness.
Well, a lot of the metals that you find in these manganese oxide deposits are rich in cobalt, lithium, copper, nickel, things like that. These are the types of things that we need to power the green economy. So if we're going to transition to a greener economy and try to avert the issues that will result from climate change, there's a need to potentially source these metals from various places. And one of the places where companies are looking at maybe trying to extract these metals is in the deep ocean. In some areas of the deep ocean where you have these deposits, you have very, very high levels of biodiversity. So that they have significant scientific value. They have significant cultural value, and so a lot of the research that I've been doing has been looking at what is going to be the impact if we start removing some of these metal oxide deposits from the seafloor.
Some have described Dr. Sweetman's findings as an inconvenient discovery. This is because some Pacific nations like Fiji and Samoa are in favour of a moratorium on deep-sea mining, but the Cook Islands, Kiribati and Nauru are keen to pursue economic opportunities from deep-sea harvesting. Pacific nations must decide whether to pursue deep-sea mining or protect their marine ecosystems. The choices they make could shape the future of both the Pacific Ocean and the global fight against climate change. But what is the potential cost to our marine life and the way that oxygen is produced on Earth?
Right now, we don't know. I've just arrived back from the Cook Islands. So I've been there. There they have a number of mining companies, hopefully going to be extracting or doing work to look at the baseline conditions, the biodiversity, the ecosystem processes that are taking place there. And I mean, a lot of these mining companies are in a very, very early stage of exploration. So who knows what is down there? You may find very high levels of biodiversity. You may find this oxygen production process going on. You may not find it going on. We simply do not know, and that's why it's important to actually go to these areas and look at what's there and what the ecosystem is doing. It's important to look at these new discoveries not as sort of like, okay, we found oxygen production, therefore there should be no deep sea mining. We shouldn't be looking at it that way. What we've found is a particular process that's going on. We don't know if it's going on in all manganese nodule habitats. It could be, it may not be. I'm not able to say. We don't know if it's continually happening or it's just an episodic process. We don't know if it happens over large spatial scales or small spatial scales, but we've discovered it and we need to explore it in greater detail. And then once we have information on it, as well as information on the biodiversity around these deposits in the deep ocean, then we can better manage if we do decide as society that we need to go into the deep ocean to mine metals to help us get to achieve net zero. Then we can use this information to basically undertake the mining in the most environmentally sustainable way. So this discovery, it shouldn't be used as a sort of like by people to say, hey, this has been found, no to deep sea mining. That's not what this discovery has shown. This discovery is definitely shown that there's something that we need to look into in greater detail.
But Dr. Sweetman warns that the climate change clock is ticking and that we won't have the luxury of spending decades trying to fully research and understand what his discovery means.
We're not going to be able to figure out everything that the seafloor is doing and all of the biodiversity that's down there before we have to make a decision. We don't have the time. We don't have the luxury of finding out everything that we can about the seabed and those types of things because climate change is rapidly, upon us. It's happening right now, and we need to make a decision. If we're going to go and mine the deep ocean, we need to make those decisions quickly. So we're not going to be able to, gather 20 or 30 or 40 years of data before we make the decision. That's just the situation that we're in, and it's not the mining company's fault that we need to make decisions quickly. It's the fact that we've been burning fossil fuels left, right, and center for God knows how long. This generated, a very serious issue. The timeline needed to figuring this out is probably not going to be 10 years. It may be 2 or 3 years more of research before we figure it out.
This is Samson Samasoni, executive producer for Pacific Mornings, reporting for PMN News.